It's not about what I want. It's about what's fair!
Two-Face. What a cool character. How do they make him look like that?
Christopher Nolan, who is all about making stuff absolutely real, he said this is the one thing I don't want to be too real.
Tim Weber from Framestore is here on the couch with us, and we're gonna be looking at some amazing visual effects that he's worked on over his illustrious career.
Did you know that in Gravity, in some of the shots, they're like 99% CG?
How much of Sandra Bullock is real in that shot?
Can't be a puppet. Puppets can't move like that.
We're gonna be looking at The Baby from Children of Men. We looked at that a few years ago and didn't really know exactly how it was done, so we're gonna get some real answers today. On top of that, you actually directed a full short film that uses a bunch of technology that you guys developed at Framestore that's like brand new, and I'm very excited to learn about that.
Well, you're gonna learn about all that and more in this episode. If you haven't seen Gravity, it's insane. The thing about Gravity that blew my mind was discovering like how much of it was CGI. Like I always figured like, oh, these were sets and you guys did stuff in these, but then I discovered that we're effectively looking at like a 95% CGI image. The body is CGI, the background's CGI. Sandra's face is real.
What I love about this scene is her performance, the intention of her performance comes through totally in the animation. Everything she's doing, what she's thinking about is there, but we had to totally reanimate her. You could do no motion capture because her movements are not correct for a zero gravity movement. You know,
sure,
you have to, you know, so you have to very, very subtly animate tiny, tiny little details to make it feel real and yet totally driven by Sandra and totally Sandra's performance.
This is like an iconic shot. This was like the womb shot, I think was its name, right?
Yeah.
The whole set, the whole background, and the whole spacesuit, that's all CG. How much of Sandra Bullock is real in that shot?
So when she's in the suit, it's just her face, and then once she's out of the suit, it is all except for one leg. If I
Which
remember
leg?
correctly.
Which leg?
That's crazy.
Yeah, you tell me. Can you tell which leg it is?
I was actually looking at the leg because I noticed the leg closest to camera had like some muscle flexing going on that I could just barely see some shadows on. So I'm gonna maybe guess the back leg. So I guess the right leg?
Yeah, the back leg.
And is that because she's strapped in with that leg so she can be moved around
Exactly.
and then she's just going like this for the rest of her body?
Yeah, well, she had to have something to ground her movement, so we had to lock her leg in, exactly.
And I remember there being a really complex sort of rig that you guys developed in order to achieve those shots. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we used 3 different techniques. The very simplest one was occasionally they would just be sitting there doing something and there would be a physical light and it wouldn't be moving too much. Yeah, that worked for a very small handful of moments. Yeah, nice and easy. Then we had a system where we had car assembly robots and we put the camera on one car assembly robot and we had one with a light that was the sun and one with a massive, massive big light that was the soft bounce light from the Earth. And they would move around so that they were moving around in very complicated ways. But then the third one, which was the most successful for the complicated shots, was to put the actor in a rig that did some simple movement but kept them vertical, and then surround them with LED panels. So it was this quite complicated box of lights, and we could essentially map their lighting environment onto that, so that the light from the sun, the light from the bounce from the Earth, the light from the ISS as they came closer, that would, you know, an image of the ISS would get bigger. It was image-based lighting in the real world.
Yeah.
It worked really well. It was very successful. It gave the actors a little bit of an idea of what was going on around them as well. They could respond to things, they could see the other actor flying past them, that sort of thing, gave them an eye line, and gave them the correct lighting so that the faces then dropped into the CG. We weren't having to undo the lighting design of the virtual world to fit what was shot on set. This one, she is on a fairly static rig. It could rotate, so a lot of the movement is on the camera. The movement has been reversed onto the camera. She's on a single axis rotation and the camera is spinning and moving around. Yeah, because in order for her to be able to get into these poses, we couldn't turn her that way,
right?
Because she'd be upside down and the blood would go to her head, it'd be uncomfortable, she wouldn't be able to hold a pose, etc., etc. So everything has to move around her. The camera, the set, the lights, everything is moving. But at the same time, her performance is her performance, and you know, you have to let her do her performance. So we had to make it flexible enough, so all choreographed together, but flexible enough to respond to whatever Sandra did.
When she's taking off her spacesuit, I feel like I spotted a very sleek little hidden cut
There are a few, yeah.
There are a few, but
yeah.
she's still very much in her spacesuit, takes off her glove, and the glove and the helmet will wipe across her face.
Yeah.
And now I feel like you switch to a different rig in a different moment so that she can actually be
Exactly.
doing everything else.
Yeah, so up to that point, all we needed was her face, and we could shoot it in the light box, which gave us much easier, complex control over the lighting. But once she's actually taken the clothes off, the light box didn't have the space to get people in to help the clothes and the mechanics of it. So yeah, we needed to join.
It's a really, really sleek little hidden cut. It took me like 4 watches to be like, wait a minute, they're strategically covering her face with those gloves.
Done there. Yeah.
Whoa, this is crazy. Gravity, what a movie. It takes place in space. And that reminds me of today's sponsor, Squarespace, which, if you are not familiar, Squarespace is the best way to build a website in 2023 for yourself or your small business. Now, Squarespace has beautiful, award-winning templates which help you navigate the galaxy of the open internet. But that's just the beginning. You see, Squarespace has best in-game analytics. You can better understand who's coming to your website and how they're using it so that you can improve it over time. They also have audio and video block features which allow you to directly embed video and audio onto your Squarespace website without having to send your customers out to some other part of the solar system. And in addition, Squarespace has simultaneous social media posting, which allows you to make one post from your Squarespace website and have that automatically format and go out to a bunch of other social media profiles. Isn't that handy? It's like visiting multiple planets at once. Yeah, you know, Jupiter has many moons. It does. So if you're interested in jumping into your own spaceship with Squarespace, it's not rocket science. Head on over to squarespace.com/corridorcrew and you'll get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Remember guys, Squarespace, the best way to take off in 2023. Wow.
She might still be alive. I can't remember.
So you made a whole short film called FLITE, and we're about to check out the trailer for it right now.
Start somewhere calm, moment by moment, and we're in.
You guys at Framestore, and you specifically, you made this whole short film as sort of like a testament to the technology that you guys could build. Can you talk about any of that technology that went into making this possible?
Sure. I mean, there's a bunch of new things we developed to make this film possible, but sort of the main one that was driving us to do it is we wanted to create a pipeline that worked with Unreal, but on big visual effects projects. So visual effects projects where you're working at quality and at scale, which most short films made in Unreal have been done with a small team of generalists who work very tightly together. But we wanted to set up a pipeline that you could work with hundreds of people, thousands of shots kind of thing, you know, that sort of thing. So Fuse actually stands for Framestore Unreal Shot Engine, but it's also about, it's also about fusing the two pipelines together.
It's too fragmented. It's a prototype and it's not always pleasant.
Just I saw something.
Was she CG for most of that? Or is that just like...
She's hybrids. This is, again, part of the process. I took a lot of the things we did on Gravity and made them more easy to manage, easy to work with, and more affordable.
But what's really cool about this is that I can't quite tell. The real looks like CG and the CG looks like real, and so it all just feels like a cohesive world.
That's the aim, yeah, that's great. And I think there's a couple of things. One is, this is actually in a character's memory. So it's not supposed to be completely photoreal, but it needs to have the richness, the fidelity, and that feeling that you're talking about, where you can't tell what's real, what's not real, and it just has a quality to it that is engaging. One of the big things about this was, because we were making the whole thing in Unreal, made us able to do a lot more work at the previs stage, because that work isn't going to be thrown away. So we could build up the assets at the previs stage, we could finesse the lighting, we could do all those sort of things. So that when you're looking at the previs, you're looking at a much more close to finished product. When I'm doing animation, we could immediately get feedback on how it would look in the finished product. It might be a very quick render that could happen in 20 minutes, everything including the comp, combining the live action and the CG render, and get an immediate feedback of how small changes are going to look within 20 minutes instead of within 3 or 4 days.
Wow, okay.
It will reduce the wasted work massively. You'll be making better decisions earlier. You'll know that that shot is not needed, or, you know, it makes the whole filmmaking process more efficient, more creatively responsive to what you want to do, and you can avoid those sort of situations.
These kind of episodes are always a treat because anytime we have a guest from the industry here on the show, we get so many good stories and so many good details, but they don't all make it into the YouTube episodes. They do, however, make it into the extended cuts on corridordigital.com. So come join us over there. It's a good time.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I remember when this movie came out. So this shot, we're seeing a lot of underwater effects here, and the first thing that comes to mind is this looks accurately murky. You know, like the fall off of light feels like what it would actually be like underwater, which I know would be a challenging thing to get.
It was actually, and some of the modelling of how light behaves in water has been done, and it can be put into a render because of technology and understanding and knowledge. So we had to just develop it by eye, I'd say, a lot of it in comp, trying to work out what would happen to the different frequencies of light and the chromatic aberration you'd get because of the lenses. We did want to make it feel natural and real, but at the same time, you've got to see what's going on. So it was that delicate balance.
But she's my friend too.
It's one thing to have a bunch of like CG that is doing that, where you have that fade off of light into the distance, but you're integrating this with plate photography as well. Like Daniel Radcliffe's not CG in a lot of these shots, but his hair is flowing as if he's underwater.
Well, he was filmed underwater.
So I guess the reasoning behind filming him for real underwater, even though that's so challenging, is to get that realistic hair motion?
Yeah.
I feel like these days all the hair would just be replaced digitally anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that was not an option back then.
Really?
Yeah, I think that would have been extremely hard work. And also his performance, you get a much more real, the dry for wet is great in certain stylized situations, or when you just got a few shots and you can control them and carefully shoot around it. But with a sequence this long that is all about being underwater, I don't think you could have got a performance that felt right. I think any other way would have been tricky.
So flowing hair underwater in a blue screen situation sounds like one of the hardest keying situations you could deal with. Technically speaking, how does one separate that flowing hair from the blue background?
Back on a show I'd done before this called Gulliver's Travels, I developed a new technique for keying. That it's sort of using various layers in the comp and lifting off brightness differences, using sort of difference. This is why having a color in the background that is close to your final background helps, because it means you can lift off, not as a hard cutout edge, but you can sort of use differences basically and use them in different ways in different places, patch it all together. Because it's often, it's not about cutting something out, it's about something slightly lightening what's behind it, slightly darkening. It's about the transparency and how that affects things.
Oftentimes I've been surprised that like big productions like this, it's like you're sitting down and basically doing Photoshop frame by frame.
Absolutely.
For thousands of frames.
Yeah. But even these days, sometimes that's what you end up doing. It hasn't changed.
Hey, usually we ask for comments for like what movies or scenes we should look at, but are there any visual effects artists that you would want us to bring on the show? Please leave a comment down below suggesting your ideas. Children of Men.
So I think we actually took a look at this sequence like 3 years ago, but we didn't really know anything about how it was made, so we're making a lot of guesses. But now we can get the answers.
How is he?
Can't be a puppet. Puppets can't move like that. Probably not a newborn baby. Probably didn't hire an actress who had a due date right at the end of the film schedule.
It was one of the best moments in my career when we were walking out of a screening and someone was overheard saying, "How did they get that actress to give birth on camera?"
Yes! That is like the ultimate compliment.
It was, yeah.
You're like, job success.
So naturally we are suggesting that this is a CGI baby.
You could be right there, yeah.
But what's so special about a CGI baby? Didn't we see that one dancing way back in the day?
Oh my God, the dancing baby!
I'd forgotten about that.
I was like, wasn't that like basically the first meme?
More or less.
Yeah.
But this one looked really good, and I think that was very unique about it, especially in like at this point in time when no one had really seen a CGI baby that looked realistic.
And it is a very grounded film. It's nothing fancy here.
Yeah.
It has to feel totally believable and not take you out of the movie at all at this point. That would have killed the movie. So yeah. And I think in Alfonso's minds, there were lots of reasons for doing it this way. He wanted it to be a long, continuous shot, as you know, he loves them, but it immerses you in the moment. The minute there's a cut, you know that this thing isn't really happening, you know, because you've impossibly jumped from here to there, and you know, it makes it less real somehow. Whereas, you know, if you as a viewer have to move every time from one place to another, and time is continuous, and there's no hidden changes. There are some, but you know, none that you're too aware of.
Right.
It makes it more real. You're more immersed in the moment. So Clive Owen needed to take something at this point. He needs to have something in his hand, something with the right weight and the right, you know, sort of basic shape.
If his hands are holding nothing, they will move as if they're holding nothing. So you need to put like a 6-pound weight in his hands so that you have that inertia.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then you have to like paint out everything and...
It was slightly smaller than the baby, so mostly the baby covers it over. That just makes your life easier.
Okay, sure,
yeah. Tiny bit smaller. Back in these days, everyone would talk about how CG humans would be plastic, and they were totally plastic.
Yeah.
And there's two aspects, I think. One is a lack of subsurface scattering. It made the, you know, skin look plastic.
Yeah, because I definitely noticed some subsurface scattering on the baby's ear and the fingers as they went in front of the lamp.
And the other was movement, and you know, the animation is also what makes it feel real.
It feels like you see the arms being loose and like bouncing off like its legs, and then it does the kicking of the arms kind of going out, the firing of the muscles, the toes, this. Like it's all very realistic.
A lot of reference was watched to get that right. Yeah.
An animator had to like watch a baby like in the first few seconds of their life and like those type of motions, as opposed to like, all right, we got a baby, they're 3 days old. It's the earliest we can get.
They behave differently. Yeah. So it totally had to be the first few seconds of life. I hadn't just had a baby. My wife had a baby at this point.
You went through quite the ordeal. I know.
But that was good. That was useful reference too. Yeah.
The Dark Knight. Wait, you worked on The Dark Knight too? The Dark Knight is 2, not The Dark Knight 2.
Yeah.
It's one thing to put prosthetic makeup of like gore on a person's face, but that's additive. And the beauty of CG is that you can make it subtractive. So you can clearly see that his face is missing.
You can see into his mouth, into his face, absolutely. It's the negative spaces that, make all the difference.
So especially in his lip there, like the fact you can see that his lips are missing beyond that lip, it's so subtle for this shot where he's kind of hiding it.
And the design of this was tricky. Christopher Nolan, who is all about making stuff absolutely real, he said, this is the one thing I don't want to be too real, because it's a gory, disgusting face.
Yeah.
And if it's too real, it will take you out of the movie. You know?
Right.
You live. You die.
You know, obviously, shooting on set, he had his real eyeball there doing the stuff. Obviously, okay, at home. But
we took that out. We captured that separately. Yeah.
You're motion tracking his eye, but how much of his real eye is there? Are you keeping the actual pupil and just replacing all of the whites of his eye around it, or is his entire eye replaced?
Sometimes it was entirely replaced, but wherever we could, we kept the little bits that we could. But it's often quite little, because when your eyelids are shut, the lighting on the bit that's there is wrong. So even though there's a bit of eyeball there, you can't use it because the eyelid is shadowing something that it wouldn't shadow, etc.
Okay. How did you get his teeth to match?
Or are they all CG teeth?
They're all CG teeth.
Even earlier on when he is actually talking and you can clearly see the real teeth under his real lips, you're saying those are CG teeth the whole time.
Are they?
You know, like the easy thing to do is like keep that real, but then when you actually start doing that, you're like, oh, but now the teeth don't look like the other half of his teeth that are rendered, even though we did everything we could to match them. It's easier just to have all of his teeth be CG.
Yeah, I can't honestly remember. I think we did keep a little bit of the teeth. You're right, it's to get them to match is tricky, and also the light will be slightly different on the teeth where the real lips are, if the other lips, if there's light coming in from that side.
Right, yeah.
So I think the join is certainly not halfway. We'll have taken the join a bit, but maybe the ones sort of further down. Complexity of the lighting, if these things aren't right, there's a subtle difference that you notice isn't right.
Hey, if you're a new viewer here, thanks for stopping by. I hope we can see you around in the next video, but you gotta subscribe, so thank you for that.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a privilege to talk to you, honestly.
It's been great.
I can't wait to see FLITE. It looks super cool. There's a trailer online. You can check it out right now. I'll have a link in the description down below. And yeah, big shout out to you and to Framestore for the incredible work and for taking the time to join us.
Thank you. It's been very exciting to be here.
Heck yeah. Bye, everyone.